Wait, there it goes. Well, good morning. I have 9:30, so it is time to get started. I'd like to start by wishing all of our mothers a happy Mother's Day. Y'all all look beautiful. As usual, we will start the class with a prayer. It sounds like I'm echoing. Am I echoing? Sound okay? I can't do anything about it, so I don't know why I'm saying it, but...
You know how to turn it down?
Turn it down? I don't know.
No.
Over here?
No.
He said don't turn it down. The echo's fine. Okay, it's just me. You know I can get loud sometimes, so... Okay.
We need loud.
We like loud? Okay. Well, loudly, Dwayne is going to lead us in our opening prayer this morning. So what prayer requests do we have this morning? Yes, ma'am.
We have some real good friends. The husband and wife both are in, the husband's on dialysis and his wife was put into a rehab last week to get her weakness back together. and it's Jan and Butch Morgan.
Jan and Butch Morgan.
Yes, and they're both in pretty bad shape right now.
Okay. Wendell?
My sister in Winfield and her husband, they was leaving a restaurant Friday night, and his field went off and shocked him back in while he was driving, and he blacked out. He was able to pull off the road, and she got out to get in the driver's seat to take him, and she fell. She's in real bad shape and hurt her rotator cuff. So both of them are. He's in DCH in Tuscaloosa. They said if that hadn't operated, he would have died.
Wow.
And so she's in bad shape. So anyway, Luana Markham and James Markham.
Luana Markham and James Markham. Pam.
There's two little boys named Asher. One is in my daughter's class at Creekview Elementary. He's 3rd grade. The other one is in Nashville. He's in 4th grade, and they both have injuries. The one down here has a traumatic brain injury from a go-kart. The one in Nashville fell into a storm drain during that last bad storm, and they don't think there's brain activity. They're just waiting to see. So both those, and I don't know the last names on either one of them, but prayers would be appreciated for those two little boys named Asher.
Absolutely.
Right.
Clark.
That prayer, hours from Hoover Congregation, Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
They will take the ventilator, take him off the ventilator last night because they don't really feel like this is no form. We hadn't heard anything last night. When we left, his son just had got there from Denver last night, and we don't know if they decided to go ahead and do it last night or waiting or what. But it's really.
Okay. That's our brother Steve Martin in Hoover. Took him off the ventilator last night. Planning on taking him off. Brother John?
Seldom do I get any good news. 10 days ago, I had an MRI for a pinched nerve in my neck and some other problems. And I got a good answer this past week. It's not any problem. I just need to don't be concerned about anything. I just appreciate everyone praying because prayer does work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Don't let me go too fast, Dwayne. Brother Jerry.
This is a Thanksgiving. Tammy's sister Nancy had breast cancer many years ago, and she got involved in a program for them to do further testing. And the doctor said, "I don't want to see you anymore. You're cancer free."
Awesome.
Nancy Marlowe.
Nancy Marlowe, Tammy's sister.
That's a Marlowe without a W.
Any others?
Let's bow down. Our Father in heaven, we're so grateful for the day. We're grateful for the opportunity to be able to be in the class and to learn from your word today and to open it together and to study it together. And Father, we are so mindful of the ones that have been mentioned, leading and requesting special prayers to you on their behalf. And we know that there's so many others that we could think of and talk about. We want to bring to your attention those that have been mentioned here today, and we know that you already know each and every situation. But we ask you to be with Jan and Butch Morgan, who are both going through different things, but very difficult things right now. We ask you to be with them and to bless them. And Wendell's sister and her husband, Rolana and James Martha, we ask you to be with both of them in the situation that they're in with the accident, and help them to be able to recover and things to go well with them. The two little boys, whose names are Asher, that are going through different things, but each very serious with both of you, and we ask you to be with those two young men, and to be with their parents, and help the doctors to be able to recover them from those illnesses that would be all possible. And we ask you to be with those families and to bless them through what they're going through. And we're grateful, or ask, Father, that you be with Steve Martin, one of the members at Hoover, who could be coming off of the ventilator last night. We ask you to continue to be with him and his family in the days that are ahead for him. So grateful for the good news that John received on his latest MRI, and hope that will continue to help him to feel better and to feel stronger in the days that are ahead. And Father, we ask you to be with Nancy Marlowe. We're grateful for the good news that she has received with regard to her cancer, and ask you to be with her as she continues and hopefully continues with the recovery. Thank you, Father, for every blessing you give to us every day, and for the hope that you give us in your Son, Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Dwayne. So, 2 weeks ago, we studied a little bit about Abraham. Last week, we studied about Isaac. And this week, we're studying about Jacob. There is no doubt of the significance of these three characters in God's plan for us as his children. I did just some quick searches, and this is just my count. I looked at all the different translations. On average, the three names are mentioned 26 times throughout the Bible in 26 different places. I just put the verses up here. I put a few of them out there. For instance, the first one, and Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of the land to the land that he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Drop down a few to Numbers. Surely none of the men who came out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. And then drop all the way down. I just picked out Acts 7:8, and it says, and he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham became the father of Isaac and circumcised him on the 8th day. And Isaac became the father of Jacob, and Jacob of the 12 patriarchs. I think the most significant thing that we can say about these three men, when you look at all of the instances, all of the mentions of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you'll notice that in some cases, like in Numbers, it's God talking. It's God confirming his covenant through these three men. And in other cases, it's prophets, it's apostles, it's different people in God's community, in God's family, reaffirming that plan and their belief in that plan. Because that is significant for each one of us. And it's so interesting to look at these characters and to think, specifically for Abraham, you know, the most significant thing about Abraham was really there was nothing significant about him until God came into his life. God uses people that he sees fit to carry out his plan. And there doesn't have to be anything special about you. What makes you special is God's influence on your life and your devotion and your accepting of God's plan and putting it above everything else in your life. And that's what we see of these three men is, yes, they struggle. Each one of them has their own struggles. In fact, what we're going to look at today is Jacob's life. We're going to look at the meaning of his name. I'm not sure how the meaning of his name isn't actually just the word struggle. Because if you think of Jacob's life, it is one struggle after another that he goes through. And that's kind of what we're going to be looking at today. And speaking of that, right from the beginning, Jacob has tension in his life. Genesis 25:21 through 23 says, and Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children struggled together within her. Here we see the actual sonogram of Jacob. Well, you can see how Isaac is trying to kick Jacob in the head, and that caused him to grab his heel. It was kind of a karate move if you think about it. But
Rebecca's still mad at you for calling me.
Jacob, yeah, it was kind of Rebecca's struggle. Yeah, I imagine Rebecca didn't have the best pregnancy, but there was a lot of, I don't know, maybe she considered it great because there was a lot of movement. And I don't know. Sorry. I digress. The children struggled within her and said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. Rebecca is kind of given a hint here of the future of what's going to happen with her boys. We don't know that she necessarily shares this with her husband Isaac, but obviously she is made aware of what's going to be happening. Just kind of interesting to think about that. And these struggles start from birth, but we see it throughout their lives. And we don't only see it throughout their lives, we see it throughout history. It has ramifications on God's people and God's people's adversaries throughout their lives. I just wanted to jump real quick just to kind of display that. If you go all the way to jump forward, we see that when the Israelites are coming out of Egypt, we're told that there is struggle. The Israelites, this is just one map, I'm sorry if it's too small, but we see their route coming out of Egypt, and when they get to Edom, we come to this passage where the Israelites come to the Edomites and say, please let us pass through your country. We will not go through any fields or vineyards or drink water from the well. We will travel along the king's highway and not turn from right or to the left until we have passed through your territory. But Edom answered, you may not pass through. If you try, we will march out and attack you with swords. The Israelites replied, we will go along the main road. And if we are our livestock or any of our water, we will pay for it. Or if any of our livestock drink water, we will pay for it. We will only pass through on foot, nothing else. And again they answered, you may not pass through. Then Edom came out against them with a large and powerful army. Since Edom refused to let them go through their territory, Israel turned away from them. We see the strife between the families continuously, not just throughout the 2 boys' lives, but throughout their whole entire lineage, if you will. So just taking a step back, I just wanted to jump forward to that. But again, we look at Jacob's name. And I found several places where it talked about the meanings of Jacob's name, and there are several different commentaries that say it's definitely possible in the Hebrew language that a single name can have multiple meanings. Obviously, one of the ones that we read about as Jacob is coming out, grabbing the heel of Esau, the holder of the heel is one of the meanings of the name of Jacob. I also found it interesting that another one is supplanter, because we see that in Jacob's life. I don't honestly know as much. I tried to research that a bit. I don't know if that was more of a reactionary name after seeing what happened in Jacob's lives, or or the word Jacob literally means supplanter. And then, of course, a third meaning is also to follow or to be behind. And obviously, it's kind of in line with Jacob coming out of the womb, holding the heel, but following his brother out of the womb. Genesis 25:24 through 26 says, when the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out, and his hand grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. So again, just speaking to the struggles in their lives. It's a constant battle between the two. And there are so many stories in Jacob's life that we can look at, so forgive me, there's no possible way. I know I've said this about Abraham and probably said it about Isaac too. It's not possible to cover their whole lives in one class, hard enough to cover it in a quarter, but just wanted to look at a few of those significant areas of Jacob's life that kind of affected the rest of history, if you will. And of course, one of them, speaking to this name supplanter, you can't talk about Jacob without talking about the basically stealing of a birthright, if you will. It's an interesting story because it's always referred to as the stealing of Esau's birthright. But at the same time, you think, this was part of God's plan. Did Jacob necessarily steal the birthright, or was it always part of God's plan for him to use Jacob? Potentially, Jacob doesn't necessarily go about it in the way that God would have him to go about it, being deceptive, but we have what we have in history, so the way Jacob went about it was following with God's plan to be before his brother. So the verses say, once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of your red stew, for I'm exhausted. Therefore his name was called Edom. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. Esau said, I am about to die. Of what use is my birthright to me? Jacob said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Isn't that an interesting exchange? If you think about that, if you think about Esau's attitude, I know we're studying Jacob, but just think about Esau's attitude in this entire exchange. For one thing, there's a significant lesson to us that says, it doesn't matter what your situation is, it doesn't matter how dire your situation is, we can't let ourselves get too dramatic and basically, in his case, say, well, I'm about to die. What does anything else matter? I just need to preserve my own life. Nothing is as important as that. How disappointing do you think a statement like that, whether it's coming from Esau or whether it's coming from one of us, how disappointing to God is a statement like that? The most important thing to me right now in this moment is to preserve my own life. That is not what God's all about. It is not what it is not in following with God's plan. It is not what God would have us to be as Christians, but it's the attitude that we see of Esau in giving no regard to something so significant in his life. Nothing could be more important in Esau's life than that birthright, but he didn't understand. He may have, here's my thought process. he understood it. He understood exactly how important a first child's birthright was. He understood what his grandfather and what his father had done for God's kingdom. I think he saw all of that. But for him, in this moment, he decided, I come first. I'm more important. And I think the reason that you can come to that conclusion is because of that very last sentence. Because the rest of the story here makes it sound like Esau just doesn't care. It just doesn't matter. It has no meaning to him whatsoever. It's just a thing that he can just give away and move on and be done with it. But what you do see is, from what I read, that last sentence shows instant regret. An instant realization of, what did I just do? How many times do we find ourselves in situations, maybe not as significant as this, but in situations where we feel like we're in a moment and we just let ourselves not think about God and not just take a step back, focus on the situation, and make an important decision. We just kind of jump to a conclusion, and just, the best way to say it is, we just kind of take control. We think, it's time for me to take control and set this situation right, and this is what I'm going to do, and I just make a decision right on the spot. I think that's what we look at from Esau, is he's just in this dire situation, and he's going to make a decision and not care about anything else. All he had to do was probably take a step back, take a breath, and understand what was truly important in that situation. It's not what he did. He just reacted instantly because he was the most important thing in his life at the time. Thoughts or comments on that? I haven't gotten y'all wheels turning yet.
What does that
Tom.
mean? Thus Esau despised. In that particular reading, what does despised mean? Hated?
I think it's multifaceted. In my opinion, I'll let other people answer too. But absolutely, it was something that, he hated the situation, and more so, I think he hated his brother. He hated the fact that he let himself be taken advantage of, in his opinion. Because that would be the way that Esau looked at the situation, as my brother took advantage of my situation. The question is that truly what happened? Did Jacob really take advantage of did he purposely manipulate his brother? There's arguments about that. I mean, Jacob did take advantage of a situation, but Esau's the one that presented the situation and said, it's just not that important to me, so take it. Sorry, Tom, you were going to make a comment, and then I'll go to Paul.
This whole story is a metaphor of every one of us. Because at a time in our life, we had a birthright that we sold for a bowl of soup, a little bit about what we wanted, what we thought. It was all, in that moment, focused on self. And we sold what we had for basically nothing. And the difference is where Esau had no honorable way to regain his birthright. We have been given a way to regain what was once ours, what we frittered away for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a metaphor of human life.
Yeah. Paul?
I've just always been struck by, to me, I would use the phrase that he's a drama queen. I mean, how long had it been since he had eaten? You know, he says, I'm about to die. Okay, Esau, you're not about to die. Maybe you've missed a meal or two, but you're not on the point of starvation. And then to me, the other thing is, so you're telling me that this stew that Jacob is cooking is the only food that's in this huge tribe of people, that he couldn't have gone over to another tent and said, hey, have y'all got, some bread you can share? And there's just so much silly drama to me that comes out of him at this point, that he's just, oh, I'm about to die, I've got to have some stew. To where when Jacob goes, well, sell me your birthright, that he didn't laugh at him and go, what, are you crazy? No, I'm not going to do that, and laugh him off. And so, to me, it just shows how Esau just, I don't know, silly he and foolish that he was, the whole situation and how he acted and then reacted.
Mm-hmm.
Ray, the New International Reader's Version helps me on that, as Pam was asking about why would he despise it. This is how it's translated there. So Esau didn't value the rights that belonged to him as the oldest son. So for him to sell his birthright showed that he really placed no value in it. And to Tom's point, this is what happens. People reject Jesus because they don't understand there's an eternal condemnation for them to live the way that they live. They trivialize things, and that's what Satan wants us to do. Not see the importance, the relevance, the immediacy of being right with God. Just look at it and say, I don't see the value in that right.
Yeah. And there may have been thoughts in Esau's head of, it's not important right now, I'll deal with it later. Because doesn't that happen so many times in our lives? I'll just do what I'm going to do now, and I'll deal with this problem later. Barry?
Well, I was thinking, from Esau's point of view, he said, Daddy likes to do best. Anyhow, it's not like either one of them went to Isaac and said, I've sold my birthright. It belongs to Jacob now. No, when it comes time for the birthright, Esau's, all right, my turn. So somewhere along the line, he sold it for this soup, but he didn't really, in his mind, he didn't sell it. He didn't do anything. I'm Daddy's favorite. He's going to give me it anyhow.
Yeah. Good lead in, Barry. Thank you.
Think about this too. What does it say about that? He took advantage of his brother. And what does it say about his character? I think I can debate this both ways.
Yeah.
But you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at this. Because he took advantage of his brother at a weak point, and he benefited from it.
Yeah.
Now, is that morally right?
And that's a comment for this slide too, because as Barry alluded to, we jumped forward. Miss Charlotte?
I thought the birthright was the double portion of all of the inheritance went to him. So that meant he would have had to hang around and take care of business among all of these cattle men and everything. But he didn't like to do that. He wanted to go hunt all the time. So it might have been that, Jacob was there. He was learning the business and all the things. But, so maybe the birthright wasn't that. He didn't want that responsibility, perhaps.
Perhaps. And perhaps it's all kind of rolled up into one, right? It's the responsibility, it's the property, but it's certainly also the blessing. We see in this next story that I'm jumping to Genesis 28, just how important the blessing is. So whether or not the responsibility and the property and the inheritance as we think of it today was important to Esau or not, there is absolutely no doubt that the blessing was extremely important to him. And once again, we see a little bit of the character of Jacob, and you might argue the character of Rebekah as well, since she kind of led him into this situation. But not only does he steal a birthright, but he ultimately steals what we can considered the most important part of the birthright, because as Barry alluded to, in Esau's mind, I'm still getting the blessing. That portion's still, I didn't sell that. I mean, because again, as Barry said, I'm Dad's favorite. I'm going to get this blessing. So when the time comes, we know the story. You know, Isaac asks for food, tells his favorite son to go out and hunt for him. Rebekah overhears this. Well, Isaac says, go out and get me some food and I'll give you my blessing. So as Esau leaves, Rebekah goes to Isaac and says, no, this birthright's going to be yours. So of course, tells him to go in and make some stew and dresses him up. I don't know if she sprays him or what, but makes him smell like Esau, makes him hairy like Esau, and sends him in to his father. So it says, starting in verse 22, so Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's. So he blessed him. He said, are you really my son Esau? He answered him, I am. Then he said, bring it near to me that I may eat of my son's game and bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, come near me and kiss me, my son. So he came near him and kissed him, and Isaac smelled the smell of his garments, and he blessed him and said, and we talked about the blessings last week, so I didn't get into that. I find it interesting that, you know, these are kind of some of the first stories that we hear in the Bible about Jacob. If you stop here, Jacob doesn't seem like that reputable of a person. We see him manipulate his brother on multiple occasions. We see him manipulate him out of his birthright. And then you can't just blame Rebekah for this transaction, because it isn't Rebekah standing there when Isaac asks, are you really my son Esau? Jacob's answer is, yes, I am. He was going to get that birthright. But at the same time, I think it kind of tells us, it shows us that God can work in any way that he wants to. And sometimes that we're not always going to understand the exact path that God leads us down. And I think God can take any situation, even when it almost seems like we're fighting against what God would have us to do. God can use situations to how he sees fit. Now, I am not advocating going off and doing something against God, because God could use this bad situation in a good way. That is not at all what I'm saying. But God is able to use people, to use anyone in a positive way for his kingdom. And I think we have a lot of lessons to learn about the transactions between Jacob and his brother. Yes, ma'am.
Rebecca probably thought she was following God's command, because the younger was supposed to be, the older was to be the servant of the younger, so she was hoping that happen.
It is a good point. You know, and there are several situations in the lives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob where we see the men trying to do what they think God would have them to do. And then God steps in and corrects them and says, no, do what she tells you to do. We see that with Abraham, we see it in Isaac's life, and now we kind of see it in Jacob's life, but Isaac's not really in agreement with it, but it's ultimately what ends up happening. Because yes, it is a good point. As we looked at in one of those first slides, she is told when she's basically asking God, why is this happening inside of me? Why am I? Because obviously it was traumatic for her. God tells her there's two nations battling inside of you, and the older will be subject to the younger. So yeah, she may have been taking matters into her own hands to make that happen. But again, we see the ramifications of all of these different interactions between the two brothers, continuing to have ripple effects throughout history, really as they're supposed to. Because we see Isaac's reaction in multiple ways. I mean, Esau's reaction in multiple ways. Genesis 25:41 says, and Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will slay my brother Jacob. Esau is not at all happy about the situation and is so upset with his brother, probably over the years. You got to think these two brothers growing up may have never had a day where they got along. They are constantly butting heads, and ultimately Esau says that he wants to kill his brother as soon as his dad is gone. And luckily, Rebekah overhears it. So she sends her son away. But Esau is greatly affected by everything that has been transpired. I know it's a study of Jacob, but I think it's important to look at Esau's reactions kind of as a contradiction to what you see in Jacob and how his life progresses. What we see in Esau is bitterness, is really just whatever my parents want, I'm going to do the opposite. And we see that when he goes to choose a bride. He's done it before, and he's going to do it again, because these are two different sections that I put up here. Notice one's Genesis 26, and then later on in Genesis 28. The first one, when Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite. I guess that's the way you say it. And also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were the source of grief for Isaac and Rebekah. Esau understood that his choices in who he married made both of his parents, not just his mother, but his father as well. They were the source of grief. But when all of this transpires with Jacob, what we hear is that when Rebekah sees this whole situation and this conflict between her two sons, the one thing that she says is, again, kind of taking control of the situation, I do not want my son marrying a Hittite woman. Do not allow him to marry a woman of the place that we live now. So Isaac gives Jacob the command as they're sending him away. He gives Jacob the command, do not marry a Canaanite woman. And Esau overhears this. And again, the part that you have to remember now is that now it's just not between Esau and his brother. Esau is now at the point where he's revolting even against his dad. Probably the man that he was so close to because I'm dad's favorite. And now he's just the switch has flipped, if you will, where he's just straight up rebellious. Because in Genesis 28 we see now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Padan Aram to take a wife from there. And that when he blessed him, he commanded him, do not marry a Canaanite woman. And Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and had gone to Padan Aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael and married, I don't know how to say that, Mahalath. Close. Mahalath. The sister of another, y'all can read the name. And daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. And again, look at what this says. He realized how displeasing these women were to his father Isaac. He is now at a point where he's at odds even with his father.
And he's still married to a Canaanite woman.
Yeah. So,
Actually, he's married to a daughter of Abraham.
a daughter of Abraham.
But he didn't divorce the two women he owned.
No.
No, but he went to a descendant of Abraham to get a wife.
Yeah. Okay. A few other. I'm gonna jump around a little bit now. What kind of time? Oh no, I'm not. Am I? We have 3 minutes. Wow. What happened? You want to do this real quick? Want to talk about Jacob's ladder real quick? I guess we won't read through this, but pretty significant that this is a renewing, if you will, for Jacob. As he's struggling, God comes to him in a dream and basically tells him, I am with you. It's a reconfirmation for Jacob that you are my chosen people, and I will be with you. And that's where we see this story. Next, I wanted to jump to this because I told y'all every time I study one of these characters, one of the first places that I jump to is Hebrews. And again, with Isaac, we see this with Jacob again. If we look at Hebrews 11:21, it says, by faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons, and by faith, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. Again, we look at the significance of what the writer of Hebrews looks at Jacob's entire life, and the same thing that he does with Isaac. He says, when you look at Jacob, he realized the importance of God's plan and what God had for us as a kingdom. And that is the thing that Jacob focused on when blessing all of Joseph's sons. And I think it's an interesting contrast to look at how Hebrews looks at Jacob and how Hebrews then looks at Esau, because Hebrews 12:16 and 17 says, see that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau. For a single meal sold his inheritance right to his as the oldest son. Afterward, as you know, he wanted to inherit his blessing. He was rejected. Even though he sought the blessing with tears, he could not change what he had done. We see a distinct contrast between how Jacob's life progresses and how Esau's life progresses. We also see a contrast with when he's blessing the sons of Joseph. I put Reuben's blessing up here because Reuben, again, firstborn, birthright goes to him. But Reuben receives a blessing that says, you are my firstborn, my might, the first of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. Turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel. For you went up onto your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it. In both of these situations, both with Esau and now with Reuben, they are punished because they do not follow God's law and do not consider important what God considers important. In both situations, it was all about self. It was all about what is best for me in moments of weakness, but in bad decisions, they were both supplanted, if you will, of their birthright. Okay, it's 10:16, sorry. I tried to say that quickly. Thank y'all. Have a good week. That is all.